So the subject of this session will be dialogues, writing and building up scenes, and writing and rewriting your script.
Okay. I don't like to rewrite.
No?
No, I don't like to rewrite. But okay, let's establish that and keep going.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, first question is usually how many drafts do you take for you to get from the first draft to the shooting draft?
I'm sorry, what?
How many drafts does it take for you, usually?
One always, that's it.
So no rewriting.
Right.
No, but how many times do you rewrite yourself before giving it to the producer?
Well, that's true. I actually like to do 2 or 3 drafts myself before I give it to anyone. But on occasion, I mean, on Flashdance, I wound up doing half a dozen or more. And on occasion, I've done the most in 3 or 4. And I find that if I do that many, it begins to run out of steam. I always give, if they want me to do a rewrite, I always give them a terrific argument, telling them they're idiots and they don't know what they're talking about and all of this stuff, and it gets very heated. But on many occasions, once I've calmed down and I understand their concerns, unless it violates what I'm trying to do, if it violates the basis of what I'm doing, I won't do it, you know, and then I get into horrendous arguments. But if it doesn't do that, and unless, you know, and if I figure out that either the changes are incremental and don't matter, or that they help, and that the suggestions are good, of course I do it. But I said to you the other day when we started, my problem is that I don't suffer fools well. If I respect the people involved, and if I weigh the arguments, and then of course I don't have any problem with doing the work. I don't mind working, I like working. But I refuse to be put in the position, and I made this decision a long time ago, where I'm asked to mutilate my own child. And if I feel that what they want me to do is to destroy my own child or mutilate it or hurt it, I won't do it. If it doesn't do that, then I will. And it depends on the situation. It depends on the decency with which I'm treated. I made a joke the other day about, you know, about being Hungarian and having big chips on my shoulders. But in some ways, I'm a very unlikely screenwriter in the sense that, you know, if you grow up as an immigrant in the United States, if you're a refugee, and if you come in totally dirt poor, right, and if you're with your parents who are being fucked over in 10,000 different ways and you witness that, you know, you do have chips on your shoulders, but screenwriters are not supposed to have those chips, you know, but I do. For better or for worse, I do, and I know myself pretty well at my age. You know, and sometimes that works to my benefit, and sometimes it doesn't. But the thing I always say, it's those damn cigars that I asked you to blow my way, because I love the smell of them so much.
No, I'm looking for the best thing.
Can't smoke anymore, so if anyone smokes around me, I say, please blow it my way. Maybe we should go back out and come back in again. Start all over again, right? So in that sense, I may be a very unlikely screenwriter, because screenwriters aren't supposed to be seen or heard in Hollywood usually. But I just refuse. I refuse to hurt what I've written, that I poured my whole heart and soul into. And then the trouble with screenwriting is that most screenwriters are very happy to do that if they're paid enough money. You know, so they'll take the money and say, oh, sure, I'll change. You want this? It doesn't matter. There's a screenwriter that I dislike almost as much as I dislike that non-screenwriting scumbag Robert McKee, you know. And he's a very successful screenwriter, and that's what I'm talking about. But he said, and and he behaves. He says, "I'm here to serve the director's vision." Okay, that's what I do. Well, fuck that. It's my vision, right? Not the director's vision. It's my vision. The director translates it to the screen, and I've said publicly that that attitude is almost like a bordello attitude. You know, okay, you want me to spread my legs this much, or this much? Tell me, and I'll do it. Okay, and so. But I don't like doing that. It hurts my thigh muscles if I have to do that. So I don't want to do that.
Just to bring that back to reality, Joe has done some 17 films that have made its marks on the world of motion picture, and he is therefore respected as an author. And in the beginning, I think, as you heard yesterday, the first screenplay, the 450 pages, that sucked. That sucked, and it had to be redone. Is a way to go. So we're dealing with a lot of people that have very limited amount of experience here, and I think they need help. And it's great if you have a vision, and you're so strong about your vision, and you're able to tell that story in a brilliant way. Then we love that. We would love that the most. Unfortunately, that hasn't been my experience here with the scripts that I've read. They're less than brilliant. I think they all need work. Now, I've also done, as many, well, a little more movies, probably 57 movies to date. 3 with Joe. But, so I've had experiences with working with all kinds of writers, and there are different kinds, and Joe is a very unique one, because he really comes up with his own ideas, writes them, and then presents them, and then we have a choice of either liking it or not liking it, and that's our prerogative. It was his time and effort, nobody's paid for it. He's submitting it, and if we like it, great. However, from time to time, Joe gets hired also to do a particular job for a director or for a studio, where he has to interpolate that stuff, and often that's a much more collaborative effort than.
It's a rewrite you're talking about, and I very rarely have done them. I've done them for directors who are friends of mine or who are in trouble, who are a month away from something being shot, and they need what's called a polish. My name is not on those movies. And I really do it as a favor. But if your name's on the movie, right, and people see your name, and your name is your heart and soul in what you've done, I would certainly listen if a man has produced 50-some movies, and I would listen to his opinions very closely. And I would really assess them and view them. Because he does know what he's talking about, and in my opinion, in my experience, he's also a very decent man who's always treated me with a great deal of respect and decency. If the situation isn't that, and if there's someone who's trying to force you to do something, period, to force you instead of suggesting to you and talking to you, don't be forced, don't be forced. But if the suggestions are good, and if you're treated with respect, consider them. And if they don't violate, in your opinion, what you've created, and if the changes aren't so significant that they violate what you've created, then look at it very closely. If on the other hand, you're working with someone who says, "Hey, I am the director, yeah, and you are the writer, yeah, and you will do what I tell you to do," then say, "Fuck you, I'm going to come across the table and get you." Right? There's nothing wrong with doing that if that's the attitude.
Okay, so most people here would like to know your writing process. So, for example, with the first draft, you just rush through the pages as fast as you can, and then go back and revise, or you revise pages from pages to pages?
No, in my first draft, I'm terrified from the beginning. They're blank pages. I'm not sure what's happening, and what I really want to do in the first draft is finish it. Sometimes I don't even finish it. Sometimes I go 2/3, and I have the rest of the scenes blocked out, and I put down words blocked out. That's actually how it happened with Basic in my own first draft. That was called Love Hurts. There were notes all over the pages, and then from about the third of the way through the third act, you know, I took notes in terms of where it's going to go. Then I go back. I try to give myself a little time to get away from it, so that I can be a little bit balanced, you know. And then I come back and I go through it again in terms of characterization, and especially the main characters. And then I finish that, and I come back and do a third for myself, which is characters, flushing it out, secondary characters, and all of that. Sometimes that's not enough and it doesn't work. I mean, and I know in my, how do I know it doesn't work? The only thing I can tell you is I know in my gut. I feel it, whether it works or not. And if it doesn't work, the only thing I can do is stop, wait, and go back to it again, you know, with a kind of a fresh approach. In a process where I give it to Andy or to a studio, and Andy has suggestions, or the studio has suggestions, I try to, at that point, to take a little time and step back, to take a month, you know, or 2 weeks, just to step away from it. Because my heart's too involved and I'm too passionate about it, and I know that. So I want to step back a little bit and then consider it again. A producer like Andy will understand that and say, okay, you know, take the month and just regroup. There are people who won't do that and say, I need it next week. You know, and I have to say, I can't give it to you next week. You know, I need at least another week to do it. But usually, if I'm writing a spec, I usually do 3 drafts for myself. Usually, you know, in Basic's case, that didn't happen. You know, it was first draft, and it was 13 days, and I thought it worked. Now, I was paying very close attention to how my agents would react. You know, at the time, I had 2 really smart agents, Guy McElwain and Jeff Berg, and I really was interested in their reaction. And I knew that I would get an honest read from those 2. And the honest read means either they're going to say, okay, we're going to take this out and try to sell it now, or they're going to say, well, let's wait a little bit before we sell this and see what the market is and all of that. I know how to read all the signs. It's like Morse code, you know. I mean, I know what they're saying, whether they're really into it. In this case, they were into it. And I thought, okay, you know, we were done. The final piece of that, as I said to you with Basic, is that the title, you know, as I was walking out of my house to take it down to Federal Express, to send it to my agent, Guy McElwain, literally as I was going out of the house, it was called Love Hurts, and I suddenly had this thought of saying, I can't tell you where this came from, it came out of the air. The words Basic Instinct came out of the air. And I thought, that's a really good title, it's better than the one I have, you know, so went back, changed the cover page, and sent it down to them, you know, that way. But it happened at the last second before I sent it down. You must listen to your voices. You know, you must listen to what your voices tell you, because your voices speak to you, you know, and you must listen closely to them. I've sometimes said that I'm not really in charge of my own scripts, that there's this twisted little person living in there, and periodically he starts screaming at me and throwing his arms up, and stuff like Jagged Edge comes out, or Basic, or something really twisted, and then he's happy and quiet for a while. But in whatever shape those voices come, listen to them, because they are your creative voices. You know, if I'm being religious about this, I would say that, you know, these are your God-given guardian creative angels. If I'm being a little twisted about it, then I'll say it's a twisted little demon, you know. So whatever it is, listen to it.